200
200 million albums, yeah.
plus.
It's quite a lot, isn't it?
It is quite a lot. That is, 8 times our population in Canada?
Is it? Really?
Roughly. So.
Well worked out so quickly.
Thank you very much. Okay, your first solo record was An Old Raincoat Won't Ever Let You Down. That was 1969. Decades later, do you still feel nerves putting out new music?
Yeah, of course you do. You know, you obviously want your work to be accepted and loved. So there's a little bit of nerves there, not as much as, you know, when I was 19 or 20 and I was just starting and life depending on me making it. Mm-hmm. But now I make records that I like and that the fans like.
You said recently that you wouldn't like to be coming into the music business now because you've described it as quite discouraging.
Yeah.
How so?
It's a jungle now. When I first started back in the late '60s, everything was brand new. You know, everything was fresh. Nowadays, I think it's not so. It's very.
You mean
difficult.
Musically or in the business sense?
The music, you know, it was you were discovering new acts all the time. You know, for me, it was Sam Cooke and Otis Redding and all those guys. But for now, it seems a lot of people go into the music business for the wrong reasons. It's not a burning desire that they want to make music. It's just let's join a rock group, you know, so I don't have to work.
If you were starting now, what advice would you give to a younger you?
Well, my daughter, funny enough, is just started. She's trying to break into it. She never listens to me, so I don't think anybody else would listen to me. But I think you've got to be really committed to it and love it dearly, dearly, and forget about fame, forget about becoming rich. You know, do it because you love the music.
I heard a great songwriter say the advice he'd give to his younger self is, cut yourself some slack because there's no way you can do it perfectly. You're going to make mistakes along the way.
Oh, yeah. I would imagine that's like any other career. You're going to make mistakes. Yeah, it's very true.
You're famous for your storytelling. You do that on this record here, but I'm curious about where this all began. Who are some of the musical storytellers that inspired you, first spoke to you?
From way back, the songwriters would have been, you know, first of all, Rambling Jack Elliott, who was an American folk singer. Then, of course, Bob Dylan, when he brought that first album out in the early 60s. That was a big influence on me.
What was that like for you when you first heard that?
Because I'd never visited America in those days. I was only like 15 or 16. It just opened up the whole world for me, all the songs on that album.
Do you remember writing your first lyrics and what that experience was like?
Yeah, they were useless. When I was in a band called the Jeff Beck Group, and Ronnie Wood was the bass player, and we decided that we were going to write some songs because everybody had just started writing songs. The Beatles and the Stones, you know, had just started. So we went to Beck, said, you and Ronnie go off and write some songs, just lyrics. So he said, okay. So we went round to Ronnie Wood's mum's house. And we sat there in the front room and his mum said, only turn on one bar of the heating because we couldn't afford to turn on all three. He says, okay, Mum. So we started writing lyrics. After about half an hour, nothing. So Ronnie said, let's open a bottle of my mum's wine. This was like midday. And we said, okay, we'll have a drink, see if that helps. It didn't. So by 6 o'clock that evening, we drunk the wine and his mum came in the room. We were both laying on the floor asleep. We hadn't written a thing. And she said, well, you're going to be a big challenge to the Beatles, aren't you? So that was the earliest bit of songwriting.
Do you remember
nothing happened?
Well, it's kind of good that the wine didn't work out, or else that could have been the start of a bad songwriting process. But tell me about the first time you stumbled upon lyrics that you really did love, a story in musical form that you were like, no, this is good.
Certainly it wasn't on those early Jeff Beck albums. It would have been on my albums. You know, when I wrote the lyrics to Every Picture Tells a Story, and Mandolin Wind, I was really pleased with those. Mm-hmm. Maggie May was nearly not on the album because the record company didn't. The story goes, and it's a true story, they only had 8 tracks and they said we needed one more. Well, I said, I got this track I haven't finished. And I played it to them because I hadn't quite finished the vocal. They said, well, finish the vocal. We don't think it's very good because it hasn't got a sing-along bit in the middle. And that track turned out to be Maggie May.
It has an unconventional structure.
It does, yeah. It's a rambling sort of song, you know, very much the way Dylan was writing at the time.
Why do you think it connected so much?
Oh, I've got no idea. I've got no idea. I can't answer that question. I mean, it certainly hasn't got what they call a payday in the middle.
Yeah, yeah.
It's an interesting story. It's a true story about my first sexual encounter.
I love that story.
Which we won't go into.
You don't want to go into that
Oh
story?
no, it's filthy.
Well, we don't have to go into the details, but I mean, it's a great story.
Yeah, it was my first sexual encounter at a jazz festival in the south of London.
Yeah.
South of England.
Yeah, it's a great, and then it resurfaced 10 years later into this song. Okay, through the 70s, 80s, 90s had a string of huge hits, but you've said that you doubted your ability as a songwriter.
Yeah, I did. I was never comfortable in the guise of a songwriter because I always felt songwriters wrote songs, just write them down anytime they want, and it was always a bit of a struggle with me. It never came naturally, so I didn't think I was a bona fide, genuine songwriter. I think differently now after all these years.
Yeah. How did you get through that conception of a songwriter, that the songs sort of pour out of these people and it's harder for you?
I think when the public accept your songs, you say to yourself, well, I must be doing something right here. Simple as that.
So there was no kind of moment where you said, no, I'm a songwriter. It was just getting that response, the positive feedback.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, your songs have sustained through the years, but critics have been rough on you. Why do you think that is?
I think maybe the lifestyle, overpowered my voice and my songwriting, which to some critics probably thought that was a huge crime.
Kind of overpowered the narrative.
They would rather I came out and just wore a pair of jeans and a jean jacket, and sang instead of being flamboyant, which I think is all part of the entertainment business I'm in. But they're okay now. I mean, some of it I probably asked for,
Did you care about it back then? Did it
Yes,
affect you?
I slit my throat a couple of times. Nah, it didn't worry me that much.
Never worried you. Okay, I want to ask you about your American Songbook records, 5 albums of standards. Why did you want to go so deep in exploring American music?
That form of music, you mean, the classic.
But then you also did a rock covers album, soul album.
Soul album.
Yeah.
Well, with the American Songbook, myself and the well-known producer Richard Perry, we just did it, every time we'd go out for dinner, we'd come back to his house and we'd start recording these beautiful songs. And we tried to give it to Warner Brothers and several other labels, but they didn't want to hear about it until Clive Davis came along and he liked the idea. So it's songs I was brought up on. My mum and dad and my sisters always played these songs. So, but no idea it was going to do as well as it did.
Have you always had a love affair with the American musical tradition?
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Bob Dylan earlier. Was that the genesis for you? Or does it go back before that?
It goes back to Al Jolson even. My mum and dad used to play Al Jolson when I was really little. But the first rock and roll show I ever saw was Bill Haley and the Comets in London. And that may have been the turning point. And listening, my other brother bought Little Richard's Girl Can't Help It. And I remember playing over and over and over again, a big old 78.
Yeah.
I could just about reach the needle,
But it just moved you right away.
Absolutely, yeah.
How did exploring great songwriting in the songbook projects and the cover albums, how did that affect you as a songwriter, visiting that great songwriting?
I don't think it did. I think to tackle those songs, it's a real stretch because they're difficult.
As a performer.
Difficult. Yeah, they're difficult chords, they're difficult arrangements, and the voice is soars, and it's not your usual rock, obviously not a rock and roll song. So that, I think, helped my voice in the long run.
So it was more
a better ballad singer.
So it helped you more technically.
Yeah.
It was more of a technical challenge than a kind of creative performance challenge.
Yeah.
This is your second album of originals since 2013.
Yeah.
What do you credit with that kind of burst of creativity and songwriting?
Well, the first album, Time, that had 10 original songs on it, and I thought, well, I've been able to write songs again. Let's just put it out there and see what happens. And it was so well received. In fact, it was so well received, I got this wonderful big thick book put together by the fan club of all their comments on the album from all over Europe and America. One guy put it together and he sent it to me. And I was so encouraged by that. I thought, they really did love this album, the real fans. I'll do another one. So that's how this album came about.
That's kind of beautiful that the fans compelled the songwriting
Yeah,
as opposed to other events in your
yeah.
life. Do you remember any other gift you've received like that from fans that's moved you like that in your career?
Oh, hundreds of things. I get gifts all the time that are just, some simple little tiny things to big things, and trains and all sorts of things I get.
Trains?
Well, I'm a big railroad fanatic. I have a
Okay.
model railroad. So the fans buy me trains, and they throw them on the stage sometimes.
Did
Hit me on the head.
what was it like for you to kind of kick that writer's block and come out with this burst of material in the last few years?
It was wonderful. It was an awakening. It was something I thought that had left me for life. I thought the gods had taken away my songwriting abilities, and for it to come back was just wonderful. And I enjoy it.
And it just started pouring out of you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say pouring out.
Still
it's the middle
difficult.
of the night. I have to get up and have a wee, and then write some lyrics. I get out. A lot of it does come to me in the middle of the night. I'll just be laying in bed and I'll think of a lyric and I have to reach over and write it down.
A lot of people talk about that state, almost falling asleep, being quite a creative state.
Yeah.
What's been inspiring your song, your lyrics?
What
these,
has?
Yeah, with these last couple of projects.
Family, events, life, just generally. I've written a few songs about my kids, a tribute to my father. There's a song on this album about growing up in London after the war. Although I was, obviously don't remember it. These are stories that I've learned from my brothers and sisters.
One story about fatherhood: Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. Can you talk about that song on
Yeah,
this latest
Batman,
album?
Superman, Spider-Man. Well, it all came about. I'm always the last one to go up and kiss goodnight to my 4-year-old son, Aidan, and he always asked me to make up a story. And I said, well, what do you want it to be about? And he says, Batman, Superman, or Spider-Man. And that was it. The song was born, see? Just by him simply saying that, there's a song born. There'll be no publishing for him, of course.
Has family inspired your songwriting as much as it has right now in the past?
No, it's inspired me now. Probably never in the past. No, I was always singing about, tall blondes and things like that.
Is it difficult to share stories about your family in your music?
No, not at all. I think if it comes naturally to you, then that's okay. I mean, my album, it's personal, but it's not that personal, My life is an open book anyway. I've got no skeletons in the closet. There's nothing I'm hiding, but everybody knows everything about me.
That's the new experience these days.
Yeah.
What's it like raising 2 young sons at 70 right now?
It's brilliant. I got 8 kids altogether. But the 2 youngsters, I miss them so much. They're back in London at the moment. It's just wonderful. The house is so noisy in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning before they go into school. It's just, and when they're not there, I just miss it. They're all shouting and hollering. They're 4 and they're 9. So they're always fighting each other, always trying to get each other into trouble. Mummy, he bit me. No, I didn't, Mum. That sort of thing. It's the fountain of youth for me.
And you said you like a noisy house.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I do like a noisy house. Yeah.
Why is that? Some people, they want their refuge. They want their house to be a peaceful little castle.
Well, it is. When they go to school, it all calms down a bit. But, I've always had children around the house. I've got 8 kids. I've watched them all grow up. So it's always noisy first thing in the morning. And when they go off to school, then it becomes quiet. But I love every minute of it.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that one of your older sons is a professional hockey player with the ECHL Alaska Aces. In Canada, we have to mention that. You're basically an honorary Canadian as a result of that. What's it like to see your son pursue his hockey dream? I know you're a big fan of professional sports.
Well, he was a really good footballer. I don't know what happened. I think his mother took him down the ice rink and he never looked back. But he really was a tremendous footballer. He's a good athlete all round. He's a good-looking bastard too. To see him come out with a Stewart on his back is probably one of the highlights of my life.
Have you gotten more into hockey as a result?
Well, the rules are very close to soccer, so but there are so many rules. He does explain it to me.
Yeah, there's an offsides.
I just wish they made the hockey thing a bit bigger. I could see it whizzing about.
The puck.
The puck, yeah.
Okay, we've touched on some of your milestones. We've missed a lot of others. When you look back at your career, what accomplishment are you most proud of?
I think it's got nothing to do with how many albums you've sold and how much money you've made or how many shows you've done. I like to think that I've kept my feet on the ground and I'm a pretty approachable guy, and I hope to always be that way.
Is that hard work?
It can be, I've got adoring fans. I try and accommodate them as much as I can, but they can get on your nerves a bit when you're trying to have your dinner and someone pokes you on the shoulder, can I have your autograph?
Yeah.
The worst thing that's ever happened is the cameras, the phone cameras, because you can't escape them anymore, So I spend most of the day doing selfies.
And one selfie begets more selfies.
Yeah, because if one person sees you do it, and then there's queues. But hey, come on.
But you still do it. You still welcome the selfies.
Yeah. I have a special person with me now who just does the selfies. He's
Wow.
the selfie man. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I don't know. It could be
Good
useful.
idea, though,
It's
just give all your cameras to him. He'll take the pictures.
yeah, they wouldn't be selfies at that point, but it's kind of fun.
No, they wouldn't be.
Yeah. What about going forward musically? What's the next chapter for you?
Well, I don't know. I've got no idea. I've got a few months off now, which is going to be wonderful. I've just moved house in London, and then I go back to Caesar's Palace. We start there again, and then a big tour of Europe. So I don't know. Recording-wise, I've got no idea. I may do a country album. I may do a big band album. I may do another album of original stuff. I haven't even thought about it.
But in terms of work, you're not slowing down at all.
No. God forgive. Don't mention that word retirement.
No, I didn't say retirement.
I've got overheads.
I just said slowing down. You seem full of energy. Has that always been the way you are?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I enjoy life. I keep myself fit,
That's great. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you.
speaking with me.